Hey everyone, I'm Jay and I do stuff, and this is gonna be a short video, but I figure I should talk about this since no one else probably will. We all know the original Super Mario Bros., one of the prime games for the NES, one of the pioneer platformers, and an influential game for all. Spawning an entire franchise with dozens of sequels, merchandise, cartoons, and an obscure Japanese movie. I should cover that someday. The original Super Mario Bros. Was a solid game for its time, but it's not perfect. Sure, there are some quirks with the core gameplay and such, but I'm here to touch up on one super minor nitpicky aspect that I always found odd. That thing being Mario himself. More specifically, the color palette of his sprite. First, let's look at Mario in general. He's normally depicted these days wearing a red hat and shirt, blue overalls, white gloves, and brown boots. But more specifically a red hat and shirt with blue overalls. Now, back in the days of the 1980s, Mario's color palette was kind of the other way around. There, he used to wear red overalls and a blue shirt. But the hat always stayed red though, so naturally his in-game sprite would have to depict his design as accurately as possible, right? Well, Mario's design looks pretty solid. However, it's the color of his SMB1 sprite that always raised an eyebrow for me. I mean, he does don the red hat and overalls like he's supposed to. But then you have this puke brown shirt on him. I suppose that would be accurate considering Mario is a plumber.
You're not funny and nobody likes you.
I guess this palette would make sense for Mario's hair and boots, but Mario's body makes up most of his design, which would be his overalls and shirt. Mario is supposed to wear a blue shirt this time. Why'd they have to make it this gross shade of brown? I mean, if we look at Luigi, his design and color palette is more accurate to his design during that time in box art and merchandise. What with the white hat and overalls and green shirt to boot. Now Mario isn't the only one in SMB1 with differences in their sprite compared to their actual designs. Bowser doesn't have any hair and Peach wears a white dress. But I feel these two in particular don't really appear on screen nearly as much as Mario does. I mean, he is the main character after all. And this issue also applies to other games like the Japanese exclusive Lost Levels and All Night Nippon Mario Bros. If they're not saying nobody cares, then some could argue that the reason they didn't make his palette red and blue was because it could easily blend in with the sky or water. However, I don't think this would be the case since blue has the most color variants in the NES color palette. So I'm sure they could have just used a different shade of blue. Look, I understand the NES has its limitations, but at the same time it's important not to underestimate its capabilities and understand what it can process. I know this issue is so minor and barely warrants talking about, but I have OCD to the 98th power, plus I am an artist. So I can't help but feel unsettled with this minor inconsistency. Thankfully, this problem can easily be fixed. The legality of it is questionable, but still fixable. By opening up the game in an emulator that has a hex editor, you can actually mess around with the code to change aspects of the game itself. One of them being color palettes. There's a video that details exactly how to edit hex values step by step, which I'll link here. Check it out if you're interested in ROM editing and all that stuff. There are all sorts of varied ROM hacks out there, especially for NES games like Mario 1, but sometimes it's the simpler things that make that much of a difference. Mario just pops out so much more with the blue and red colors. But that's just my insignificant opinion on something that probably doesn't even matter in the long run. But hey, someone's gotta do it, might as well be me. But until I can scoundrel up some more content, I'll see you then. I've really gotta think up a better outro.